Trading the foreign exchange market carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin, utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to a complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade the foreign exchange market or using any of our software alert products, you should carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. There is a possibility that you could potentially sustain significant loss. You should not invest any capital or trade that you cannot afford to lose. It is your responsibility to be aware of and understand all risks associated with foreign exchange trading and to seek professional advice from an independent certified financial advisor if you have any doubts. Auvoria Prime does not exercise trading authority over your trades. You and you alone exercise discretionary trading authority over every trade.
For those of you who are not familiar with this, is actually one of the longest running and most, how should I put it, dependable forecasts in terms of news. It's forexfactory.com. Make sure you always click on the next week ahead. And then also go in and remove, if you wish, to just see red folder events only. You just apply the filter and voila, shows up here. Nothing on Monday the 19th. Tuesday, do be aware it's price index stuff based, but we've got CAD based events on Wednesday. This is a big one, guys. So these CAD pairs have been ripping in relation to most currencies. Just be real careful. Don't know that I'd want to be having any trading systems on, just because I know with some of our subscribers, the software is taken, in many cases, short trades, which really should have been just trending up trading with many of these CAD pairs. And I'll go over some of those when we jump to the charts real quick, but I'm going to kind of blast through this and hopefully get this done in 10 minutes. This is a recording and I don't have any questions to answer because the Zoom link expired. So, apologies to everyone. I guess we figured out that Zoom links expire pretty quickly when we thought they were expired in 12 months. So I learned something new every day. But in any case, Thursday, European events press conference again, another big event. Be on a high alert. Remember, these times are currently being shown Pacific time. So you're going to want to make sure that you look at Forex Factory and convert these times to your local time zone. Very important in risk management. Friday, PMI, so battle of Eurozone stuff, obviously Thursday and Friday. Ideally, if you have the type of software where you've taken trades, you've had a pretty good week up till Thursday, at the very least, I wouldn't be taking trades during this period of time. Moving on, charts. Let's take a look at bonds real quick. This is the iShares 20 ETF, super liquid. Many institutions trade it. It is a direction for interest rates for a variety of factors, including mortgage rates in the US. So looking at the 20-year, see that we came up to this 50-day line here, which is a pretty sharp decline in it, and we've rejected that and came back down. So far, looks like we may be in a tight range. For those new to these charts, this little support and resistance grouping of lines here, if you will, it's called a squeeze zone right here. Okay, so this is developed by Dasan, the developer of Variable, and a very smart individual with chart design. So this is the 7-year, again, foretelling a little bit of the reversal in the dollar. Okay, as I've talked a lot about, we're off almost 2 full bucks in the dollar off of the high here 93. So it's almost a center point, if you will, or a point of control. Oftentimes I'll talk about points of control, which is the center point, not only in time and volume for this upper area of balance. So we were balancing and rotating back and forth between highs and lows. It builds a center point through something like this called a POC. Okay, now a lot of people look for NPOCs, what they call an NPOC. All I'm just looking to have you guys do is just begin to picture a center line through a grouping, and oftentimes that will stop and reverse. It did in the case of the dollar. Trading patterns of most mean reverting instruments, whether it be forex, currencies, equities, what have you, futures markets. That's a DXY. The polar opposite, or the sort of reverse of this, is the US in relation to the euro USD here. Same thing, back now up inside But notice, which is kind of interesting. So you have a decline, and remember, these are just daily charts right here. You have the decline in the dollar of almost $2 since the high. But you know, the interesting thing of note, the euro's been going up, right? So perfectly correlated to movements, right? DXY, one of the biggest components of DXY in the calculation of its price is about 60% of it's the euro. So it would make sense that these charts look very similar. Okay. Do know we're back up inside. It's really anybody's guess to where we go at this point. Long term, though, I do see the dollar cracking back down through this 89.50 area. So essentially, another $2 to go, and then we're back down at major support. Maybe we'll be seeing a continued rally in bonds if, in fact, that's the case, or a complete inverse correlation between the two. Maybe that could start to break away. That'll foretell potential craziness in currencies. Taking a look at the Euro GBP, not going to touch upon this for too much. Talked exhaustively about a lot of these things the last few weeks, which will hopefully encourage you guys to watch a lot of the recordings that I have had in the past. But so this whole 86, 80-ish area is holding us for now. Expect this to be balancing between this. Now, all bets are off, obviously, on this if the dollar continues down. So even though there may be decent strength in GBP thing, I think the euro is going to dominate and break above this. Euro JPY, not much to tell here. Anything above this 140 to 50-ish, one spot 40 to 50-ish area, you're probably going to have some pretty smooth sailing up to this weekly chart here to the center point, which actually kind of looks like we're at the center point right now, doesn't it? Of all of this trading activity, but probably not, because you have some higher volume here. The center point's probably somewhere right in this 3180-ish, almost a 32 area, right? See that? It's almost a 132.00 area would be my goal with the target. Obviously, if the euro continues higher, if the dollar continues lower. GBP USD, let's drop back to a daily chart. Still stuck in a tight zone. Still think this is going to be determined by factors outside of my ability to put a good forecast in place with this, mostly the immediate direction of the US dollar and or the all the factors to consider in the Brexit deal. GBP CAD, okay, again, daily chart we're looking at here. Each of these candles represents a different movement in the day. So the green candles of this teal color represents an up day in the candle. The red represents down. If you wish to see the mechanics or the breakdowns of candlestick charting and or the associated patterns that go along with that, I would encourage you to go to my Telegram channel, where I have put up a number of pictures and diagrams to explain all the different chart patterns. It's actually really not that difficult to recognize this stuff. Focus on the ones that are, double tops, triple tops, head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders, the basic patterns. But recognize the ones that are the most important. You'll often hear me talk about that I actually trade personally, as well as in client accounts, and that's what's called a cup of handle breakout. Very powerful one. CAD, Swiss. Okay, so my trend up lines here, I was just showing everybody how steep some of these trends can run. Not the best drawn lines, but it just gives you an idea of the movement up. We have probably a pretty serious line in the sand. We were getting super stretched in this move up here. So we've begun that sort of rubber band snapback I talk a little bit about. Now we're holding here. And if this holds, who knows? This could completely change next week. I could be wrong in this forecast, but just looking to see what CAD Swiss does. It's probably going to be pretty dependent upon what the Bank of Canada and some of those comments coming out. And keep in mind, I mentioned those, the BOC Bank of Canada, that monetary policy report and subsequent press conference you could see here, most of these central banks, if you're not familiar with their role, is to, have efficient money supply and or efficient markets. Many of them have mandates beyond that where, keeping inflation low. So it's important to pay attention to what any central bank does of any developed country, or in this case, the European Union. What else? European press conference Thursday. Don't forget about that. All right. So just moving forward, GBP CHF. Same thing, right? So these charts look real similar in their patterns. Maybe you could use one to take cues off the other, right? Holding the line. By the way, this is a long-term trend line here, just so you know. This is another reason it's being held. I probably should extend this. These don't have to be drawn perfectly, but hopefully you guys get the idea. When you move to a weekly chart, you can see this long-term trend line here. See, we broke it. We zipped above it. When we broke out of this base here, again, weekly chart, we broke out of this base here. I'm actually going to draw this line because it's probably tough to see. We broke out of this tight base here. I would have been watching to go up and touch that. We actually blew through, and now we're resting on that long-term trend line. So this should hold, right? Crazier things have happened, but that's my view. GBP JPY. Let's drop back to the daily chart here. Again, tight range forming. You can see we have not the greatest support and resistance, but we have enough that's holding us for now. And we're auctioning essentially back and forth between these two levels, which is fairly common after a very pronounced, some sort of advanced move up or down in anything. You're going to want a cooling off period of time. This is when the martingale type trading styles, of which some of our EAs do, they do the best in this sort of back and forth stuff. Unless they have the ability to catch the trend, this is a tough area for some martingales to trade with. Okay, I'd rather be trading with the trend, because a lot of people, and do keep in mind one thing, because I talk a lot about trading with the trend, only because the fact that the vast majority of our subscribers are novices, and that's fine. You keep in mind, if you are like a raging expert at trading, you can actually make more money fading the trend. Okay, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about that, but some of the best traders I know, they'll actually fade the trend, but they're using a whole bunch of other tools way beyond what I'm showing. Most of it just involves order flow. Order flow analysis, or the footprint chart, as you'll sometimes hear it called. USJP. Long almost should be a line forming here, I would think, somewhere in right this area, sort of like the line in the sand, if you will. All bets are off. Obviously, this broke from this long-term downtrend channel that you see drawn in green here. We broke. Notice when we broke, we came back down and tested it again right here at this almost perfect 104.40 area. Anybody that saw that, especially since it was on at the time, and I don't know if that's the line now, but not sure how that would have looked back then. Probably somewhere similar. You actually had a cross take place and these two lines, and regardless of whatever software I had, I just personally wouldn't want to be trading against this, because you have two huge factors: a test of the trend line and held, right? A test stepped higher at held, a cross that takes place in these moving averages, and then it just ripped. Okay, and this is where you just don't want to be standing in front of this freight train, because it's not stopping in the station. It's blowing by it at 100 miles an hour plus. So this is something you always want to catch the tail of and ride on the caboose, if you will, right? Instead of stepping in front of the tracks trying to fade this. This is not a fadeable move. Now, at some point we got just really overbought on this, right? Is the best line here as a representation. We almost came up but touched against the tip of it. This other area is much longer term on this weekly chart as support as well. That had probably a center line right in here somewhere as well of this whole trading, maybe just a little bit higher, somewhere in there. I would expect this to contain us on the upside unless anything crazy breaks USD land in terms of it heading lower, like below the 89.50. All important area. Remember, this area here on the daily, this is it. I mean, this is no man's land after this. It's you ever hear that soundboard Kramer has where he hits the button and it's the sound of a train going off a cliff? That's kind of what this level represents to me. I need to get my own soundboard. All right, so address to cash. Let's take a look at Aussie USD real quick. Daily tight range. Been there since December. Real tight range. So we got that reset. Yeah, that's real tight range. I don't really focus much on this because there just isn't much going on. You know, at some point this will probably break, but it's been a real good system for any martingale to trade just over the last the whole last quarter since the beginning of the year. Aussie CAD, same thing. Big area right here. Big area. Resistance. Now keep in mind there was a cross here too. So resistance across these moving average green, the yellow line. But it was a resistance point, blew through it, came back down, it became support, tested underneath it, got back up, and it was completely rejected. That's why you see the red candle when we got up against it the other day, it just pulled right back. Grand scheme of things though, I mean, a lot of, with the exception of the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar's been strong, but this currency's been strong off the bottom as well. Let's see what else. GBP, NZD, NZD CAD. Guess let's just take a quick look at it. Going to be adding in the Singapore dollar, by the way, guys. That's what Killian's system trades. Take a look at one of these questions I got earlier. So this is probably more a question for Fernando, who's the developer. He runs the calls. And again, for those that are new, at the very least, what I recommend is setting up Telegram. You can do it on your phone and or laptop or your desktop. You can actually turn all the notifications off. So if you're subscribed to a lot of these channels, which are exceptionally active, a lot of these trader chat channels for Stratimus, Variable, or Neo, or Arrow for that matter, which is exceptionally active chat room. You can always turn the notifications off, so your phone's not dinging every 2 minutes. But at a very minimum, the software that you're trading, hopefully in demo first before you go live, you're listening to the developers' calls. One thing to note, since the developers and I just can't seem to all be on the same schedule because we're all in different places around the world with different, I have decided in my notes in the weekend not to include the developers' comments. So make sure, and here's the, like here's the Stratimus chat. At a very minimum, here is my Market Watch channel. Okay. And then, you know, Neo, if you're subscribing to Neo, you know, they always put out their notes, which you can see here. Same thing with Variable. Desan puts his notes out typically Friday. As you can see here, his notes. So make sure you're tuning in. At the very least, take a look at the notes on all that, and we'll have hopefully all of them running like and humming along eventually. What else do I want to mention? Spot gold. Notice first time in a while. We peaked our eyes above the fence line of the 1775 area. I'm pretty sure if we can get a closing day over this level, it's going to rip. It's probably going to go all the way to this 1860-ish. This is my assumption. Straight there, I don't know. Nice developments, though. No surprise, right? Dollar's turned around and it's been weaker. There's the miners. What else? I think that's everything I wanted to cover. All right. Spread the word if you guys could, please. Just take one quick look before I end this Forex Factory again. Next Saturday. So here's the old trusty calendar I like to look at. Next Saturday, the 24th, today's the 17th. Next Saturday, the 24th, the big momentum event. We're all getting our asses on the plane to Nashville, and we're going to be broadcasting live from the studio. So my speaking is going to be about risk management. I also have a couple of special surprises if you guys stick around and or bring lots of folk to the event. I'm not sure to what degree of depth I'm going to go into. I'm almost finished with the slides, but I promise you this will have a dramatic impact if you follow along with it on your financial wealth down the road. And with that, I'm going to bid everybody adieu. Have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support of Auvoria as we pass our 1-year anniversary. Been a little bit of a choppy road to be expected, and but it's great to see that with the exception of one company, all of our competition is now out of business. With that, be kind to each other. May the trades be with you.